All right, I just got done watching the second John Wick movie, and I have to say this one was about as good as the first. I would have to give this one also a 9 out of 10. I think that the cast in here did a good job as well. Of course, you had Keanu, you had Ruby Rose, Laurence Fishburne, Riccardo Scamarcio, Ian McShane, John Leguizamo, Common, and Peter Stormare. I think that's how you pronounce his name. And then there's also, of course, Bridget Moynihan, who made the cameo appearances through, photos, videos, flashbacks, and Claudia, excuse me, Gerini. Is it Gerini or Gerini? It sounds like it's Gerini, so I'm gonna go with that for now. So forgive if I'm mispronouncing that. But let me go back. Here we go. All right. So as I said, everything John Wick is available to watch on Peacock, the movies, the TV show. So the reviews on this were Internet Movie Database 74%, Metacritic 75%, which is actually a good number from them. If Metacritic gives you anything above 65% or even 60% for them, I mean, you would think it's basically considered good because they're a tough source like Rotten Tomatoes. Rotten Tomatoes, by the way, gave him an 89%, and Google users gave him a 90%. This movie's budget was just over $40 million, and the box office was almost 175 million. So on that one, they did better than the first movie that only did 86 million on a budget of about 30 million. So of course, this one was a little bit longer. The first movie was an hour and 45 minutes. This one was 2 hours and a couple minutes long. So this one came out in February of 2017. Retired super assassin John Wick's plans to resume a quiet civilian life are cut short when Italian gangster Santino D'Antonio shows up to his doorstep with a gold marker, compelling him to repay past favors. Ordered by Winston, the kingpin of secret assassin society, the Continental, to respect the organization's ancient code, John Wick reluctantly accepts the I can't why can't I talk right now? He reluctantly accepts the assignment to travel to Rome to take out D'Antonio's sister, Gianna, the ruthless capo atop the Italian Camorra crime syndicate. So I think this movie had a good start off. So you remember in the first movie, the crooks broke into his house, killed his dog, and stole his car. And in this movie, he got his car back in the beginning, and of course, it started off with a big, gunplay scene. I think the beginning of this movie was better than the beginning of the last one. But to be fair, it's not a direct comparison because the beginning of the first movie started off with him mourning the loss of his wife. So I think that Common Sense Media had asked some good questions about this movie as well. And let's get to that. Now, is John Wick a hero or villain? How can you tell? Is it okay to sympathize with characters like him who do bad things? Well, let's get into it right here. So, there's arguments for hero, there's arguments for villain, and then there's arguments in the middle. Now, John Wick is a morally complex character, and whether he's a hero, villain, or somewhere in between depends heavily on your definition of those terms. Here's a breakdown of arguments for each perspective. The arguments for him being a hero are sympathetic motivation. His return to violence is triggered by the theft of his car and the murder of his dog, a final gift from his deceased wife, symbolizing his attempt to grieve and find peace. Many fans see this as a relatable emotional breaking point, not senseless revenge. He kills other killers. He doesn't kill innocent people. His targets are typically mobsters, assassins, and criminals. He operates in a world full of killers, and he's often the one trying to uphold rules, e.g., continental rules, marker codes, code of honor. He generally respects the assassin code, pays his debts, and honors commitments even when it puts him at a disadvantage. Victim of circumstance. Much of the conflict is thrust upon him. Santino forcing him back into the life with a marker in the second movie. He's often trying to escape the world of violence, not indulge in it. Now, here are the arguments for him being a villain. He kills hundreds of people. Despite the reasons, he murders scores of people, often in public spaces, risking civilian lives. The death toll in the films ranges in the hundreds, and many are just doing their jobs bodyguards, fellow hitmen, etc. He operates outside the law. John lives by a code, but not the law of society. He's a vigilante and killer with no legal accountability. Uncontrolled rage, especially in the first film, his rage is disproportionate to the initial crime dog and car versus dozens of lives. The concept of two wrongs don't make a right applies. Revenge isn't justice, self serving survival. Though often justified, his violence tends to serve his own escape or vengeance, not any greater good or justice for others. Now, here's kind of like the in between arguments. There's four of them. One, anti hero archetype. He fits the mold of a classic anti hero morally gray, violent, haunted by his past, yet driven by some personal code. Similar to characters like the Punisher or Max Payne. Two, actions versus intentions. His intentions are personal, not evil. Grief, betrayal, survival. However, his actions cause massive collateral damage, especially in chapters 2 to 4. Three, world of shades. The world he lives in is inherently dark. There are no real good guys. Good guys. Within this corrupt system, he's less evil than most. He evolves. In later films, like the third and fourth films, he starts challenging the High Table's authority and becomes a symbol of rebellion, making him more of a tragic revolutionary than just a killer. So here's the verdict on that. Morally gray anti-hero. John Wick is best seen as an anti-hero, someone who does terrible things but for emotionally compelling or ethically understandable reasons. He's not purely heroic, but he isn't a villain in the traditional sense either. He is sympathetic but brutal. He is righteous but deadly. He's honorable but lawless. Like many modern protagonists, he lives in the gray area, making him compelling but controversial. Now, the next question would be, is it okay to sympathize with characters like John Wick who do bad things? Now, here's the argument for all sides. Number one, the argument for sympathizing with his type of character. Number one, fiction isn't real life. Stories are safe spaces to explore darker emotions without real world consequences. You can understand or even feel for a character like John Wick without endorsing his actions. Complex characters reflect human nature. Real people aren't purely good or bad. Sympathizing with morally great characters acknowledges the complexity of human behavior. We often feel empathy for characters who are damaged, hurt, or broken, even when they lash out. Emotional investment drives storytelling. Writers craft these characters to evoke emotional responses. Sympathy helps us connect with the story, explore moral ambiguity, and think critically about justice, pain, and redemption. Their motivations are relatable. John Wick lost his wife, then his dog, then his car. Trauma drives his violence, which I think is a fair point. People sympathize with grief, not necessarily the murders. It's empathy for pain, not for bloodshed. Number five, morality in fiction is often symbolic. In a stylized world like John Wick, violence is often metaphorical or exaggerated, not meant to reflect real world ethics. Now, here are the arguments against sympathizing with characters like him. Number one, and I find this to be interesting, desensitization risk. Constant exposure to violent antiheroes can normalize or glorify violence, vengeance, or lawlessness. It could blur moral lines, especially in younger or less critical viewers. Empathy misplaced. Some argue that feeling for killers, even fictional ones, undermines empathy for real victims. It risks romanticizing violence, especially when the protagonist is charismatic or cool. Reflection of cultural values. Who we root for in fiction might reflect what society tolerates, celebrates, or excuses, and that can be harmful if not examined. Some critics argue media too often makes cool killers into heroes by default. It can reinforce toxic tropes. Vengeful male antiheroes can reinforce toxic masculinity, revenge culture, or might makes right thinking. Now, here's the middle ground. The middle ground is sympathy is an endorsement. It's possible to understand why a character does bad things without believing it's right. Sympathy can exist alongside judgment. I get why he did it, but it's still wrong. That would be the quote. Like, that's the idea. Critical consumption matters. If you're aware of the moral complexities and engage critically, sympathy becomes a thoughtful exercise, not blind support. You have to ask, why do I feel for this person? What does that say about me or society? Context is everything. Sympathizing with a traumatized assassin is different from sympathizing with a sadistic villain, like Jeffrey Baratheon? Okay, I don't know. They should have put a name like, I don't know. You put up like just any other fictional villain from whatever movie or something like that. Um, Intent, trauma, and circumstance all influence how sympathy is perceived. Now, the final take is this: it's okay to sympathize with characters like John Wick as long as you can maintain moral awareness. Fiction is a space to explore complicated emotions. The danger isn't in feeling sympathy, it's in failing to reflect on why we feel it or treating fiction as a moral guidebook. So, this kind of goes to what I discussed in the last video, and ChatGPT was bringing up the question of are his actions justifiable? And again, I think that a movie like this really kind of, out of all the movies that I've seen, and I know that there's still a lot I haven't seen, and a lot of them I still have to catch up to, but I think the John Wick movies are a perfect example of exploring, you know, how trauma can affect a person. Can it lead you to doing bad things, even if your your heart is in the right place, and sometimes your mind may not be in the right place, or vice versa. I think the movies are really good at endorsing the idea that, as they just said, complexity and context matters. And like I said before, in his particular case, I can't fully blame him for a lot of the actions that he takes because, again, to be fair, he wasn't going out there killing innocent civilians. This wasn't, this wasn't like, okay, something bad happened to him and he snapped, and so he's gonna go shoot up a school or he's gonna go, send a bomb to a place. Like, no, 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 this isn't like that. He is a very interesting, nuanced, albeit complicated and complex character. And and like they said, the third and fourth movies kind of show how his character evolved. And even with, like, for example, even with that scene where in the second movie, spoiler alert for those of you who didn't see it, where Gianna, who's the sister of Santino, where he was ordered to kill her. Well, remember, he went into the room, she took a knife or whatever sharp object and slit her wrists, and she bled to death, and she lied in the pool of water. And as she was dying, he still ended up shooting her in the head. And it's like, that one right there, you could have let slide. But nevertheless, it was still kind of a thrilling, intense scene. It's like, okay, what's going to happen here? So all these alone, these are reasons why I decided to put this in my top 5 with action film franchises. There's still some others I got to get to, and who knows, that number could change. It might move to number 3. It might move to 5. I mean, who knows? But as of right now, John Wick is at number 4 for me. In case you didn't see the last video, number 3 for me is Terminator. Number 2 is Taken, and number 1 is Fast and Furious. And for right now, I can put Mission Impossible at number 5. But again, once I see some other franchises, other movies, some of those numbers could change. For me, I think it's nearly impossible to top Fast and Furious, but hey, you never know. Anybody could be surprised at anything at any moment. So, like I said, I thought this was a great film. This is another one I would consider watching more than once. I've seen the first film twice. So, like I said, this movie also gets a 9, just like the first one. So, I'm on my way to watch the third and fourth films, and then after that, I'm going to watch Ballerina and give you my take on them as well. So, that about concludes that for now. Let me double check and make sure that that's about it there. So, as I said, if you didn't see these movies, they're on Peacock. And if you're watching this on Facebook, subscribe to my YouTube. It's in the comment section. Go to my About section. You'll see the links to my other socials: TikTok, Twitter, Instagram. The links to those socials are also on my YouTube channel. If you're watching it here, please give me a subscription. That would be much appreciated. So that's all I have for now. And I'm going to continue enjoying this franchise. And yeah, like I said, I'm going to let you know what I think. So stay tuned.